And you're looking at this team and you're going, well, they've lost 4 in a row. They don't have their starting quarterback. They don't have a real head coach now. How are they're 20 and a half point underdogs?
It's not good.
It's large. But this is a team that hates Ohio State. You're getting their best shot. This game makes me nervous.
I mean, if you watched college football this weekend and went, I don't really get it. We can't be friends, and I don't understand
I was on an anniversary trip this weekend, and before we left, I specifically asked my wife, I will do literally anything, any activity. I will go anywhere. We can spend...
I'll do the pumpkin patch.
Whatever. But starting at 7 o'clock, I need to be in front of a TV. And I don't even like either team.
Yeah.
That's how deep this runs.
This is the Rivalry Podcast. My name is Jace. That's Mr. JP. It's Michigan and Ohio State, a podcast for the greatest rivalry in all of sports. From River Radio Ministries, presented by Elevated Integrity Construction. Now, if you are new here, and we've had a ton of new subscribers on YouTube, a ton of new follows at RivalPod on social media. Thanks for doing that. Be sure to follow, subscribe, rate, review, do all those great things wherever you're listening right now. This is a weekly podcast. We talk through the Michigan game, we talk through the Ohio State game, but at the same time, we've kind of got an eye on what this game means for the last Saturday in November, because ultimately, that is of utmost importance. Yes, national titles are important. We've been through this the last couple of years, both of our teams winning national titles. The most important thing you can do is win at the end of November, and so everything is done through that filter. Before we get into Michigan and Ohio State from this past weekend, previewing what's coming ahead, there's just some continuation of some of the craziest coaching moves during a season that I can ever remember.
I was going to say, this season, not that we called every single one, but after I think the first couple of weeks, we talked about Dabo and their struggles and how there could potentially be some coaching carousels this year. We looked at Alabama. And while we weren't right on those right now, there were a lot of other people that are going to be searching for new gigs, and they're pretty big names. I mean, you got Brian Kelly now, James Franklin, Billy Napier. There were reports that even Sarkisian is potentially looking at a jump to the NFL.
Now, he downplayed that and said it wasn't true, but you do.
Of course.
We'll talk about Texas maybe a little bit later, but I mean, look at what Texas isn't doing this season. And tell me that looks like a team that's focused.
Well, and you're looking at a couple of different guys that, while you can't ever really predict it, but you're looking at Lane Kiffin, where now there are reports of where he's going to go. And you're looking at guys like Brian Hartline, for Ohio State offensive coordinator, who's always wanted to be a head coach. That he's been very vocal about wanting to take that role. And and
on top of that, there's jobs that aren't open yet that are likely to be open, right? Wisconsin and Luke Fickell, Florida State and Mike Norvell, Auburn and Hugh Freeze. The Arkansas job, not as premier as Penn State, LSU, Florida, but the Arkansas job's available. Like, there are major Power 4 jobs that have a lot of money support behind them, and that's where Arkansas comes in, right? My wife's from Northwest Arkansas. That Tyson and Walmart money is there for the Razorbacks. And so, like, that's a position that a lot of coaches might actually enjoy being in, because you got the resources to go out and compete with NIL stuff. And it's crazy, though.
Some of these schools, too, are like elite level schools. I mean, LSU, Penn State, Florida. I would even throw UCLA into that. I feel like that's kind of a program that, obviously having a down year, they've started to kind of turn the tide, and then they ran into an Indiana team that just seems like they're world beaters right now. But let's talk a little bit about Brian Kelly, because this, for you, was a team that going into the season, you predicted to win the SEC.
Yeah.
And we looked at their schedule even back then and said, this is just a gauntlet of a schedule. Yeah. And that's proven to be a curse for them.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly, the schedule has not done them any favors, but even so, I mean, the offense that I expected to see preseason, and obviously, like, I'm a Michigan guy, like, that's where my boots are entrenched in Ann Arbor, but even looking over at LSU, I thought, this is a team that seems like it's got all the pieces together. They've got the veteran quarterback. They've got the defense. Yeah, the schedule's tough, but it's LSU. Gosh dang it. You know, they can, and it just has not been there. So in one sense, it's disappointing in one sense, just from a prediction standpoint, because I felt like LSU was a dark horse team to actually go in and take the SEC by storm this year. in another sense, it's incredibly hilarious because particularly from Brian Kelly's time at Notre Dame as a Michigan fan, I really enjoy watching him lose.
Yeah.
And especially the way that he left Notre Dame and so basically was, I'm going to go chase a championship at LSU and fake a Southern accent to get it done.
The best part.
And dance on TikTok like a weirdo. The fact that he did all those things and Notre Dame has been closer to winning a national title than he has, and now he's out of a job.
And Freeman's
Amazing.
a better coach.
Amazing. Here's my hope. And I saw somebody float this out there, and they were more just talking. They weren't predicting it. But I saw the boys over at Maize and Brew talking about how Michigan State could fire Jonathan Smith and hire Brian Kelly. And I welcome that. Honestly, because I love having a coach to hate. Hated Mark D'Antonio. Hated Mel Tucker. I can't hate Jonathan Smith because he seems like a good dude, but he's not a very good coach. I would love to hate Brian Kelly again.
Well, and that's a program that you didn't even mention at the beginning that honestly you could see that coaching change.
Yeah, but we're talking about premier real football teams. So
valid. Yeah, this Brian Kelly situation has been crazy to me because they beat Clemson and we kind of were like, oh, okay. I thought everybody in the nation, I feel like, kind of thought Clemson would be a legit, real deal team this year. And obviously that's been proven false as well. And that's been the case all season with handfuls of teams. Look at Texas, look at Penn State, any of those schools. Even at times, Alabama was being questioned by us, by other people in the media. And this LSU team, after they beat Clemson in a gritty win, we all kind of looked at them, and you were right on the money at the time of going, this is a team that's talented. They've got an elite level quarterback. They've got a really good defense. I believe in them.
Well, I said that they would go in and beat Clemson.
They would go and they'd beat Clemson. They'd win the SEC. And after they beat Clemson, they've lost every other ranked game they've played.
It's not been good.
And the downfall has just been crazy. I know some of that, there's been some injuries they've had to deal with.
Yeah, but so is everybody, right?
For sure. And these are some of their key players. I mean, Whit Weeks being out in some of their big games was obviously something they were missing. But yeah, I think just the coaching carousel this season is probably the craziest it's ever been. And I'm curious because these guys are still really good coaches. They're not what they used to be. They're not people that I feel I have faith can win you a natty, but for a smaller program, for a program that's just looking to bring some juice back into their program, these are big name hires that can do that. So I want to pivot slightly because there's one name being thrown around, and Brian Kelly's been a name tossed in this group as well, of Penn State hires. Obviously, Penn State getting rid of James Franklin. They lost a big game to Oregon. Then they go on and I haven't won a game since.
Yeah,
I mean they've
UCLA,
just looked terrible.
Northwestern,
Iowa,
which they actually looked okay against Iowa, but yeah. Anyway,
so you go in there and now they're on a 4-game losing streak. Aller is out for the season, so you've got Ethan Grunkmeyer, and we're going to talk more about this team later on with Ohio State. But you look at a program like this, a Penn State team that's got a really great fan base. They're a part of a really great conference. They can recruit really well. Pennsylvania is a great football state. And there's a lot of names being tossed around, and Brian Kelly's one of them as somebody that could go to Happy Valley. And I kind of laugh at it because right now, and maybe you'll disagree with this, maybe not. To me, it feels like a lateral move. Brian Kelly feels like the exact same coach you had with James Franklin.
Well, and I don't know that Brian Kelly. I mean, is Brian Kelly really the type of person this has been some of the national media talk too, but is he the right culture fit for Penn State? Sure doesn't seem like it.
No, and I mean, look at this season as an example. The narrative with James Franklin all this time was, well, he can't win the big game. And this season, sure, James Franklin went out and beat Clemson, but he's lost every other ranked game this year.
Yeah.
And they've still got more to go.
James Franklin with a fake Southern accent. That's Brian
honestly
Kelly.
Might even still be him.
Although here's what I'll say. You mentioned, I believe you mentioned this, but with the Penn State opening, you actually alerted me to this last night before we recorded today, that Brian Hartline is actually a name that you've seen come up for the Penn State job, offensive coordinator at Ohio State. And I'm just going to say that I vouch for this. I texted you like the day of or the day after James Franklin was fired. And I said, hey, I was just walking around the house and thinking, and I said, this might be crazy. What if Brian Hartline went to Penn State? And I almost didn't text you because I thought, well, that's kind of a crazy thought. Then I'm listening to the Joel Klatt show, and he goes, I'm just going to toss out a name for you, Brian Hartline. I went, maybe I'm not crazy. And now here we are. Thank you, everyone else, for catching up. Brian Hartline might be a good fit for Penn State.
Well, and I think this is one of those cases where Penn State and the media surrounding that opening are picking their ideal candidates. I don't necessarily think this is Brian Hartline going out and actively searching for it. Do I think he'd probably hear them out? Of course, because he wants to be a head coach.
Yeah.
You'd be dumb to not hear it out. It's the same thing at any job. If somebody comes to you with an offer, you always hear them out. Doesn't mean you're remotely interested. You just got to do your due diligence to it.
And I would also say that the fact that whether you think it was a good decision or not, after the Ryan Day situation is so interesting because again, and if you've been around the rivalry for any length of time, this will not surprise you. I mean, after he lost in November, everybody was ready to launch him into the sun. Mm-hmm. And then 6 weeks later, whenever he wins a national title and they extend him for 8 years or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of a weird position to be in also if you're Hartline. Not that Hartline was like, yeah, let's get rid of the guy. This is my opportunity. But now you're staring at a guy going, well, he just got an extension. If I'm wanting to be a head coach, when is that going to come to fruition? Now, I will also say that I think that there's still there's no doubt that he's an amazing recruiter, right? There's no doubt about that. Is he a very good play caller?
Yeah.
And that's where I put on the Tony Romo voice and go, oh, I don't know, Jim. Because I think that remains
pretty good Tony Romo impression.
It's not hard. It's not hard. It's kind of like everyone can do a Schwarzenegger.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, I think the Brian Hartline stuff is interesting to me for a lot of what you said. I've seen points from both sides of things, from the Ohio State side, from people that obviously want Ohio State to burn to the ground. I've heard from that side. Their whole thing is look at what a couple of other first-year guys that were assistant coaches stepped into bigger programs, Dan Lanning being one of them. Obviously a successful, one of the best young coaches in the nation right now, if not the best.
Yeah.
And so I get that. I still think it's a risk. If I'm taking the scarlet glasses off, I still think it's a risk as an outside hire. But then I've seen it on the other side from Ohio State. And I don't know if this is a good case or not. But they basically talked about, we all know it's no secret here in Columbus, Brian Hartline wants to be a head coach. Barring something crazy happening, like to me, if Ohio State loses to Michigan this year, the conversation would be brought up again, but I don't think it'll actually happen. I think it would take another 2 or 3 losses,
which is insane,
which is crazy.
By the way.
But I think that's the realistic meter for me of where I actually think it would happen. And I don't know if I'm looking at Brian Hartline. You're kind of in a perfect scenario to continue to learn because Ohio State's going to do what they can to keep you around financially. So the financial compensation is going to be there. You're going to be able to get recruits. You're going to be consistently contending for a national championship. You are right now the next runner up in my mind to take over that position once Ryan Day leaves. You're the next guy in line. And you get a chance to learn from somebody who, you're going to disagree with this, is a top coach in the nation and has been for a while now. Despite his record against Michigan right now, if you're going to learn from somebody, Ryan Day's a pretty good guy to do it. So you're kind of in a sweet spot with him where Brian Hartline's not this old guy that is wanting to return to the promised land and be able to go and head coach again. He's still a young guy. Yeah, he's still a young guy that's just looking for his first shot.
Sure.
And he loves Ohio State.
Yeah,
it's his dream job to be there.
It'll be fascinating to see how it works out. I don't know that I really believe that he's going anywhere or that he's going to be the hire. I think that this is just a fascinating cycle with so many coaching jobs available and so many high profile names.
I think what it boils down to, and then we can talk through this Michigan game. I think what it really boils down to is to be able to peel away a Brian Hartline, you've got to bring the bank. Yeah. And I don't think that teams will see the risk as worth it to bring the bank for a guy that's unproven. That's what I think it boils down to.
That's enough about Ohio State for a little bit. Why don't we take a little break? No, let's talk about Michigan State. This is the second most important game on Michigan's schedule. It is the most important game on Michigan State's, which is what makes what's happened the last 4 years so enjoyable. Because Michigan State is a bad football team who has one thing every year to play for, because it's certainly not bowl eligibility. It's a chance to beat Michigan. And even last year was so sweet because it was, again, one of the just worst Michigan teams that I think the Wolverines have fielded in 20 years. And they still beat Michigan State. This year, coming into the game, I think I predicted like 49-6. And that was a little bit of my heart talking, not necessarily my head. This game was annoyingly closer on the scoreboard than the game flow really was. I mean, I don't think if you watched the game, there was any doubt that Michigan was a more talented team, that Michigan was the better team. But there were multiple points in this football game where I asked myself, how is this
but why
a football game? And then I got to remember to take my own advice, because we said on this podcast, don't be shocked if this is a close game at the half. Now, I didn't expect it to be 10-7. I think I said like 17-7, 17-6.
Yeah, close enough.
But I've watched enough Michigan State games to go, you know what? The first quarter, the first half tends to be kind of this slugfest, dogfight type stuff because it's a rivalry game. This is a big deal. And then you saw that. And then in the third quarter, you saw Michigan say, you know what? I bet they can't stop the run. And I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe like 27 out of 29 plays in the second half were runs. Michigan just said, stop us, and Michigan State couldn't. Michigan runs for 276 yards in this game, 100-yard rush plus for Justice Haynes, 100-yard plus for Jordan Marshall. Bryce Underwood has a rushing touchdown. At the end of the day, for me, overall, I don't care in one sense. When it comes to rivalry games, I don't care how you win them.
No.
Like you do, because again, we're looking at that last Saturday in November going, is this good enough to beat Ohio State?
Your heart wants to go out there and just dismantle the team. But at the end of the day, a W on the schedule is a W on the schedule. I mean, it is what it is.
I mean, you know, I'm going to call it 31-13 because I'm sorry, scoring a touchdown with 7 seconds left does not count.
31-20.
You know, a win like that where you don't play your best, but still beat your rival on the road, ran for almost 300 yards. Like you're gonna take that all day. And so it's a good win for Michigan. Offensively, it's a rough outing from Bryce. That was not a good game from Bryce Underwood. He had the rushing touchdown, which was nice. The passing game was just not there, and you saw kind of a mix, I think, in the second half of he looks jittery on the road. To be expected to an extent, but he looks jittery on the road. And the run game was working. And so you saw them just kind of say, all right, well, let's just do what we need to do to win the football game. Right. Didn't think the offensive line did him any favors in pass protection, but I did think that the O-line played very well in run block. And you saw Michigan again, just lean on Michigan State, particularly in that second half. And the difference that having a guy like Justice Haynes back makes, I mean, it was palpable. It was palpable.
I mean, I've said it numerous times this season. He has been the best running back in the nation, and it's just not even been close in my mind. He has been the Michigan offense. I know you would disagree with this probably to some extent. He has been the reason you guys have pulled him and Jordan Marshall both, because I don't want to discredit Jordan Marshall either. Yeah, he had a heck of a game. But there have been numerous games where you guys have pulled out tough wins. I would say against Washington was one. I would say Nebraska was another one, obviously, where the run game just dominated.
I would agree with you on Nebraska. Washington, Bryce passed for like 250 plus.
No, he played well, but I'm saying
Washington, he was fantastic.
I'm not saying Bryce wasn't good. I'm saying that has been the key thing for your offense this year. Has been the run game. It is for sure the identity. And so I'm looking at this game, and this was the game that my wife and I were gone for the weekend. We were up near Dayton, and I said, I don't need to watch any football at all Saturday if I can just simply watch Michigan State, because there's one thing I love more than Ohio State. It's hate watching the teams that I hate.
Absolutely.
And that was two of them.
Yeah.
And so I wanted both of them to lose if it was at all possible. And I sat down to watch this game, and there's one key difference that I thought was the biggest difference maker in the entire thing, and it was the emotional maturity. I thought it was clear as day who was there to just play football and who was there to just punch some people. and I think that was obvious. Yeah. I thought the game was decided mentally before they even took a snap, really.
Yeah.
Because you look at this, and I wrote down some key specific things, because obviously the stat line for Michigan was great. Justice Haynes, 26 carries, $152, 2 touchdowns. Jordan Marshall, 110, 1 touchdown. Michigan State had 12 penalties for 105 yards. Some of those were on plays where the person that was penalized wasn't even close to where the action was. They were just being boneheads.
They were out of the camera shot.
Nick Marsh was one of them, close to the end zone, where he did some knucklehead thing that ended up taking him back. Just, it felt like Michigan State was consistently trying to get in their own way. And you mentioned this a little bit in some way of saying this game felt closer than it really was. And this isn't to discredit Michigan's defense, because I think Michigan's defense just put up a wall. But Michigan State had plenty of chances. Absolutely had plenty of chances.
They had some opportunities where they could have done stuff. But yeah, I would say, I don't even know if I'd say that they had plenty of chances, but what I would agree with is, yes, Michigan put up a defensive wall. And if you're Michigan State and you're going to pull off an upset, the number one thing you cannot do is take 100+ yards in penalties. I think they took 3 personal fouls or unsportsmanlike conduct penalties.
It felt like in the first half.
You're not going to win football games doing that. It genuinely
felt like in the first half, every single positive play that they would finally get, because Childs struggled horribly this game for a majority until the second half. He kind of started to get it going a little bit for a brief moment.
A drive or two.
Yeah, and that was it. But I wrote down some key things that happened throughout this game. The very first drive of the game, Michigan State had a turnover that allowed Michigan to start at their 34-yard line, resulted in a Michigan field goal. Easy scoring. The same thing you saw against Washington last week. Short yardage. They didn't have to go far.
And they're fortunate, too, because Jair Hill, for the second week in a row, had an interception in his hands and would have run it back for 6.
Then you go, and the first Michigan drive out of the half, MSU forces a fumble on Underwood that gets called for offside. I think you and I would both agree, if we're being rational, was a horribly missed call, because they ended up reversing it, saying that he was offsides.
Here's what I would say on that. Do I think he was offsides? I don't. I think he timed it perfectly. What I would say, though, is that everybody that I've talked to watching real time looked offsides.
I get the logistics of it.
And so I wouldn't even say that it's an egregious missed call. It's an important call. It's an impactful call. But if in real time, because obviously, and if you're maybe not as familiar with college, like, you can't review that. That's not a reviewable thing. If I'm watching real time, I throw the flag too, because I think it's offsides. You can't then go back and go, well, I don't know if let's go to the so it makes total sense why he called him offsides, because I thought he was too. Replay shows that, in my opinion, he wasn't.
No, and I think
that's a tough break.
I get the technicality of not being able to review it, but I do think that was a huge momentum shift. At the time it was 17. It was 10-7 actually, right? Wasn't it 10-7? Yeah.
Michigan State would have
the ball near midfield. Now they would have had to do something with it, which they also hadn't done. Then you look later on, Michigan State forces another fumble down 24-13. Starting at their own 46-yard line. They fail to convert on a 4th and 1 at Michigan's 29-yard line. They had back-to-back drives, that being one of them, where they went down deep into Michigan territory, and Michigan just straight up said absolutely not. And a big part of that was Jimmy Rolder. That dude had 4 or 5 plays, I feel like, some of them on those 4th down plays, just crucial. He had the one in the end zone where he deflected the pass.
Well, the second, on the 2-point conversion, I believe. And the second 4th and 1, where, again, I do not understand the Sharon Moore timeout experience extravaganza TM, but I don't know why you don't call timeout there, because Michigan's not even lined up. And God bless Jimmy Rolder for somehow finding the gap and getting to the guy anyway.
100%.
I mean, it was a fantastic game from Rolder. Yeah, and I think Michigan defensively, I mean, I'm going to have very, very few complaints from Michigan on the defense. There were 2 drives. There were 2 drives where I went, and one of them being the one that made it 10-7, where Mekhi Frazier breaks off a big run. And at the risk of being like, well, it was just a couple of plays or we're not going to do that. But I do think that there's a genuine accuracy to going, that was 2nd and 13. That run is what made this game kind of sweat it out for the rest of, the half at least. And then you get to the 3rd quarter and Michigan kind of starts salting this thing away, and Michigan State makes it a little close. And again, someone once said it's like playing basketball with your little brother. Just come back and take it back. Michigan held Michigan State to 9 of 13 drives for the Spartans, 5 plays or less.
Pretty good.
It's pretty good. Michigan blitzed on just 11% of plays. Much improved from the USC game plan. You saw it against Washington. I said last week, you roll out the exact same game plan. They did. It worked against Michigan State. There's no reason to deviate from the plan. Until perhaps you get to late November, and then all bets are off.
Everything's on the table, yeah.
Let's talk about Purdue just for a moment.
A very brief moment, because this is a team that I just watched crap the bed against Rutgers. Did you see the end of that?
I did see the end of that.
It made me just so joyous. If you don't know, I'm also a Rutgers fan. I've been a Rutgers fan.
Don't ask questions about it. Just accept it.
Since they were in the Big East, before they even joined the Big Ten, and watching them in a game that I thought, honestly, Rutgers deserved to win anyways. So God was a Scarlet Knight that day.
Please don't put that on the Lord. The Lord just, hold on. What's that guy? He said no.
He said he was a Scarlet Knight fan.
My gosh.
Let me just mark him off.
Here's my request for Michigan Purdue. Can we stop putting games at night that have no business being?
Yeah, why is this a night game?
The number of primetime night games I've seen for Michigan that have no business over the last handful of years. New Mexico, Michigan State every year, Purdue in Bowling Green, Middle Tennessee State, Fresno, Purdue again. Like, I don't need this. Kick this game off at noon.
Let it be over so we can enjoy the rest of our Saturday.
This game off on a Friday for that matter. I don't need this. Purdue has not beaten a Power 4 team this year.
They're on a 6-game losing streak.
They beat Ball State 31-0, opened the season young, full of hope. Then they beat something called Southern Illinois, and that's it. Now, I'll give them this. They scored 17 on USC, which is more than Michigan scored. But also got shut out 19-0 by Northwestern. So not great. So let's talk about the Purdue offense. Here's the highlight of the Purdue offense for me. It's Devin Mockabee.
Yeah,
that's still there. Like that dude will be on an NFL roster next year.
100%.
He's a fantastic runner. Love watching him run. The Boilermakers, they actually don't have a terrible offense. Ryan Brown throwing for 1,600 yards. They're throwing for about 240 yards a game. And so Michigan's secondary you're going to have to make tackles on Devin Mockabee. Like that dude is a tackle breaker. The Michigan secondary is going to get tested a bit from Purdue if they have time to throw the ball, which is a fair question because Ryan Brown also has 8 touchdowns and 7 picks. And so the turnover battle should be heavily in Michigan's favor.
Jair Hill will simply just have to catch the ball this time.
I literally wrote down, this has Jair Hill finally catching an interception all over it.
100%.
Purdue also has one of the greatest football names out there, a receiver named Nitro Tuggle. Nitro Tuggle.
Let me change my stupid genius real quick.
To Purdue. Turnover margin, though, because I do think that this is, the game hinges on a lot of different things, but turnover margin is one of the most glaring. Purdue is 131st out of 134 FBS teams in turnover margin. They are minus 11. Michigan is plus 9. So would I say that's good? I wouldn't.
The difference is vast.
On the defensive side of the ball, Purdue has a almost identical rush defense to Michigan State, which does not bode well.
Which ain't good.
The pass defense is also somehow worse. I realized that Bryce and Michigan didn't really go to the air all that much or all that successfully. Michigan may just run this team to death.
Well, they won't need to do anything else. This is a Purdue team that in the Big Ten, their defense ranks just in front of Rutgers, who has the worst defense in the Big Ten. This team gives up almost 29 points per game to their opponent. They're allowing about 426 yards overall. This has a game where Jordan Marshall and Justice Haynes can just carry you to victory. You're not going to ask Bryce Underwood to do anything extravagant.
And see, I would like to see, and I've said this throughout there, like I'd like to see, because Bryce, at the folks over at MGO blog, phenomenal file, phenomenal read every week, talk about Road Bryce being a very real thing. And I think they're exactly right. I think Road Bryce is absolutely a thing. So when you've got him at home in a game like this, I'd love to see you continue to, again, he's a true freshman. I'd love to see you continue to build his rhythm, to build his confidence, to call plays that allow him to be successful through the air. Because I do think that I don't want to say you need that in one sense, because again, we saw Michigan beat Ohio State without any passing game last year. But obviously, if you can add that into your quiver of arrows, if you will, to the run game, you become that much more dangerous. You become a real threat. I expect Michigan to bludgeon this Purdue team. I expect them to run the ball like crazy. This game has 3 turnovers and 5+ sacks written all over it for Michigan. Give me Michigan 38-10. Like, I don't think Michigan's going to score 40+ on a lot of folks. I think they've kind of shown that. I feel like 38-10 is probably about where this is. I see Devin Mockabee getting a touchdown on a trick play or something, and a field goal sadly kicked somewhere in the middle of the game.
When they're already down 28.
It's 28-0. They might kick the field goal. Yeah. 38-10 for Michigan.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, this is a game. This Purdue rush defense isn't good. They give up about 149 on the ground. This should be a field day for Justice Haynes and then Jordan Marshall. That tandem has been phenomenal all season long. I expect them to have another big day. It wouldn't surprise me, though, if this was a game that you finally saw Bryce Underwood kind of have another good day throwing, where because you can make those chances, right?
Absolutely.
Like, you can afford to let him loose a little bit because you're not going to have to be conservative with it. So it wouldn't surprise me to see him get a couple of touchdowns as well. I actually have more faith in Michigan that they're going to score 40. I got it 42-7. I think Purdue goes out, Mockabee gets a touchdown, maybe Brown throws one. And that'll be it for them. I think this defense for Michigan has started to find their groove a little bit. They've got different people each week that I feel like kind of is making their case for being the best person that week. I mean, example, Jimmy Rolder this past week, I thought was the clear best defender that Michigan had. You've had tons of guys on the line. You had Derek Moore.
Derek Moore is really coming into what we hoped he was going to be.
Yeah, and so I think this defense is starting to play what I think Michigan fans expected. I think having Marsh and then also having Donovan McCulley, they've kind of been emerging recently. I just don't see the Boilermaker defense that's already really, really bad being able to contain those guys enough. So I got 42-7 Michigan.
And the last thing I'd say, I would say for the folks who are looking at Bryce and concerned about the stat line and all that, I would say what I said at the beginning of the year, which is this is what the roller coaster is like starting a true freshman quarterback. Yeah, you have exceptions to that, right? Like you have the CJ Strouds, you have the Ty Simpsons for that matter. But that's not always the case when you're starting a true freshman. And so I don't think there's any concern there. I think the team is going to have growing pains alongside your quarterback. I would not be concerned. I would not freak out about it. I would also credit the coaching staff for saying we're going to, again, rivalry games, any games at this point in the season, win games however you need to. And it's different, but it's not unlike Ryan Day's philosophy of like, well, why aren't they scoring more points? Why aren't they doing that? Just win. Mm-hmm. Just win. Now, maybe you're having trouble winning. Maybe you feel a little bit like Brian Kelly and LSU. Brian Kelly being the former coach of LSU, in case you missed that news. You're trying to build like a champion. You might not know how to execute it because you are Brian Kelly. Aaron and the team at Elevated Integrity Construction have a winning pedigree and a team of All-Americans. They're a juggernaut of the industry. They've built a dynasty of championship builders. So if you have a home, church, or business build, go with the folks with integrity in their name, elevatedintegrity.com. I'm sorry for comparing anyone to Brian Kelly.
A rightful apology.
The Rivalry podcast, also a proud member of the Varsity Network, powered by Learfield again this season. The Varsity Network, the must-have app if you call yourself a college football fan. Live broadcasts, on-demand podcasts, just like this one, and free to download. Find the Varsity Network in the App Store. Be sure to search for the Rivalry podcast. And by the way, if you're not watching on YouTube right now at RivalPod or following on social media, you should do that. And if you're on YouTube right now, JP wearing a nice little homage Ohio State Buckeyes hoodie today, because the Rivalry podcast is proud partners with our friends at Homage. Since 2007, Homage has been helping fans pay homage to the people, places, teams, and moments that matter most to them. Quality craftsmanship, elite storytelling, and trademarked legendary comfort. And as always, in the show notes, the description below, there's a link to the Homage website. Get yourself some Ohio State gear. They've got a bunch of Detroit stuff as well. Super soft t-shirts, hoodies, crew necks, whatever. And when you shop there, you not only get something cool for yourself, you will support the podcast as well. And by the way, you can get your own Rival Pod merch as well, wearing that pocket tee. I keep calling it a pocket. We had a pocket tee last year.
It's not a pocket tee.
Keep thinking it is. But it's got the nice Rivalry Podcast script logo on it. We've got custom Michigan and Ohio State illustrations on the back. You can get your own at rivalpod.com. Just click on support.
It feels so good to finally have Ohio State football back. I'm tired of these bye weeks.
Yeah, I don't love that there's two of them.
Yeah, one is more than enough.
I agree.
But it felt weird not being able to watch the Buckeyes play this past Saturday. I'm so glad.
You get a new one. You get another one this week.
Yeah, and this is one that we had circled at the beginning as this is going to be the real test of how good this Ohio State team is going to be. I mean, Texas was obviously the first one up. And now look at how Penn State has fallen. But I think, and this is just who I am, and I know you'll get this. This game makes me nervous.
Well, yeah. I mean, it should.
There are some games that I'm not, like Rutgers at the end of the year. I'm not concerned with that. Honestly, maybe even UCLA. I'm not really concerned.
That's good because UCLA is terrible.
But I'm looking at this game, and you might think I'm crazy for thinking that because obviously without James Franklin now, which might actually be a better thing, and then Drew Aller going out, which also maybe might be a better thing. And you're looking at this team, and you're going, well, they've lost 4 in a row. They don't have their starting quarterback. They don't have a real head coach now. How are they're 20 and a half point underdogs?
It's not good.
It's large. But this is a team that hates Ohio State. This is a team.
Well, aren't you their rival? No, you're not. That's the answer.
We're theirs probably.
Yeah.
This is a game where and it's true with every team, but I think more so this team where you're getting their best shot.
Mm-hmm.
And every team does that against Ohio State, right? It's a no-brainer. But this feels different. This is a Penn State team that I think has a little bit of extra motivation because they're ticked off at how their season's going.
Yeah.
This defense is supposedly still a good defense. We'll talk about that a little bit more in depth. But Katron Allen, Nick Singleton are two really good running backs.
Well, Katron Allen is.
Nick Singleton, he is a guy on the team at this point, I guess.
But I agree. Katron Allen is now the feature. Like he is the feature back, and he's dangerous.
And so I think that this is a game, and I don't want to call it a trap game, but it feels like a game that for the first time all season might make you just feel a little bit more uncomfortable when you're watching it. I feel like every single year, this is for any team. You have that 1 or 2 games in the season where you should just. I would look at Nebraska last year, for example. You're clearly the better team. You shouldn't struggle with this team at all. And for whatever reason, they just kind of hang around. That feels like what this game might be. I started to kind of look through some of the different things that I thought would be key factors here. Obviously, you've got Ethan Grunkmeyer. He's going to be starting for the Nittany Lions. It's his second career start. First start didn't go well, I would say. He failed to throw for over 100 yards. His stat, 15 of 28, 93 yards, 2 interceptions against Iowa in a loss by 1 point.
And yet they still almost won that game.
And 2 of their last 4 losses, they've lost by 1 point, or I think, was it Northwestern they lost by 1?
So, I mean, listen, there's a way you could spin this, right? Like you could spin this as, well, they lost to Oregon in overtime and they lost by 1 possession to UCLA and they lost by 1 possession to Northwestern and they lost by 1 possession to Iowa. I mean, this is almost an undefeated team. Like you could do that, but you shouldn't.
You shouldn't. But I'm looking at this team and I'm going, they still have Katron Allen, who's a dynamic player. But then I also saw that he had 158 against Iowa and it just didn't matter. So, and I think when you look at this offense, you go, okay, the things that keep it going are Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. And you're going, the good news if you're a Buckeye fan is only one of them can really hurt you right now on the field. It's not like they've got a receiver and a running back. Only one of them can carry the ball. I don't trust that Grunkmeyer is going to be able to really get the ball out and do anything through the air. So as long as the Buckeyes can zone in on the run game, it should be relatively simple.
You would assume, and I intend for this to cause some PTSD, you would assume it's the Michigan game plan from 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me if this is a bridge too far here, but I mean, Here's Davis Warren coming in. Obviously, Michigan's quarterback problems last year, well noted. And so again, as an aside for anyone who's kind of like, Bryce Underwood didn't have a good game. Do you remember where we were this point last year? Settle down. But so here's a quarterback that struggled to throw the ball well. Fantastic running back coming into the game that a lot of the game's going to rest on his shoulders. And a defense that, despite the rest of the struggles for the team, still has some dudes.
Well, and this is the thing.
As 20.5-point favorites at home. Like this has the exact same path that I said last year Michigan had, covered in razor wire and poison ivy, but there was a path. And Michigan took that path last year. Penn State has that same poison ivy, barbed wire, razor wire path.
And I just don't think Penn State's got enough of the guys to be able to accomplish that. I think Michigan had some guys. They had some dudes last year.
Mason Graham
that
Stewart,
I thought severely helped them. I'm looking at this Penn State team, and as good as the running back game is going, and not to nitpick this Ohio State defense because they've just been phenomenal. They're first in like every statistical category. They're first in yards per game, third in passing yards per game, first in scoring. But the weakest part of that defense, while still being a top 10 defense, is their rush defense. They give up about 86 yards per game. So still a really good elite level run defense. Good. But if you're going to be nitpicky and go, where's something that if you're Penn State's offense can you exploit? I'm looking at the run game and I'm going, well, that's clearly the one they struggle with the most. We've got a really good guy named Katron Allen. Maybe he can help and have an explosive day.
Well, and for Ohio State, kind of the flip side of that is on the offensive side of the ball, Ohio State's weakness has been their run game. Is Ohio State cannot seem to run the football. And so when you've got a Penn State defensive line that I still think is decent, at least, I think, deny Dennis Sutton on defense for Penn State as well. I mean, he's still a guy. He's a dude. He's going to be in the NFL. I mean, this is where, again, just the parallels to the Michigan game last year, I don't think escape me, and I don't think that it escapes Ohio State either. And that's why I just have a hard time believing. I'll give you my prediction, then I'll let you give yours here. I have a hard time believing that Ohio State will make that same mistake twice in a game that would have to play out exactly the same. I don't believe it. I think Ohio State probably stays. I'm not saying that they try and assert themselves running the ball. I'm actually saying that they don't necessarily do that, but I do think that they stay pretty conservative because the way you lose this game is the same way you lose the Michigan game in 24. You run into a wall ad nauseum, you can't stop the run, and you turn the ball over. I expect a conservative game plan from Day to make sure that those turnovers don't happen. I expect them to just play their game, not worry about style points. I think Ohio State wins this one pretty handily. I think this one is boring as heck. 27-6.
I think that this one, and we've not even touched on a lot of points. I want to make sure we touch on these.
Please do.
Because there's some storylines in this game, and we touched on one earlier that I think might impact this, because typically I would agree with you, and my prediction actually will agree with you. But the more that I think about it, I might pivot a little bit, because one of the biggest factors that we haven't talked about at all is Jim Knowles. Former Ohio State defensive coordinator, his first return to the shoe.
I remember him fondly.
A little bit of animosity, to be honest, from the Ohio State fan base, where people are wanting Ryan Day to go out there and hang 100 on him.
Well, we know how well that's gone.
They're wanting him to go out there and run up the score.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at Penn State's defense, and as much as Ohio State's offense has struggled to run the ball, that's Penn State's weakest part of their defense. They're giving up about 159 yards on the ground to their opponents. This is a game where you can get those guys like Bo Jackson. Maybe you get a little bit more touches for an Isaiah West to go out there and to continue to get their confidence up against the rush defense that hasn't been able to control a lot. An interesting point of this game, there's two other things I wanted to talk through real quick, then I'll give my prediction. The one thing that I've noticed in this 4-game losing streak for Penn State that I think their defense has struggled to do, I don't think Ohio State has had to tap in yet, and I don't think that they're excellent at it, but I think it's interesting. They have struggled with mobile quarterbacks immensely in two of their 4 losses. Yep. You had Nico from UCLA. He went off for 128 yards and 3 touchdowns. Mark Gronowski from Iowa, 9 carries, 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. This is a thing where I go, Julian Saint, obviously, nobody's looking at him and going, well, the same player.
Yeah.
But you saw this briefly against Washington, where when receivers weren't open, he made plays on his feet to pick up the 3rd down. it wouldn't surprise me in this game if you saw a little bit more of that. I think I could see them being a little bit more conservative, but I think that's been a clear glaring issue for the Penn State defense is their lack of control when it comes to leaving a quarterback spy that can actually handle it. So I think that's going to be interesting. And we talked about it at the beginning of the show, Brian Hartline, if the rumors are true and he has interest in going to Penn State, don't you think he's going to come out a little bit motivated to show just how good of a play caller he's going to be and maybe be a little bit more aggressive and maybe go there and put up some points, not only to get back at Jim Knowles and kind of do that and help himself out, but also to help maybe get him closer to getting the bag? Because if he goes out there and performs well, it's going to make it really hard for Penn State to not look at him as a serious candidate.
I feel like if you talked to the coaches, you would probably hear them say none of that matters. Again, goes back to the just win. But you can't convince me that underneath that, because we're people, right? Mm-hmm. And whether it's right or wrong, as people, like, we're going to hold that grudge. We're going to hold that, that I don't even know if I would call it selfishness, but that, well, if I can put up enough points, even if he's not actively thinking, well, this is going to show Penn State that I'm the guy. You want to go out there and you want to prove yourself. Mm-hmm. And given the way that Knowles left, and obviously Jim Knowles is coming in with some bad blood too, because and again, I'm a Michigan guy, so I don't have a dog in this fight in one sense, but Jim Knowles is coming in going, I feel slighted by Ohio State and I want to prove something. This is a pride game, not just for the players on either side, but for the coaches, which is just adds a fascinating dynamic to this, which won't matter when Ohio State beats them by 3 scores, but makes it a little bit more interesting for the storylines that are there.
100%. And as much as I love Ryan Day, that's been his downfall, is the pride at times. You saw it last year with the Michigan game where there was a book that came out recently that kind of talked through the background of that. And I forget the author's name. But he basically was quoted in there by saying, Ryan Day in the team meeting said the winner of the game has always been the person that wins the ground game. And you saw the stubbornness with it last year. And guess what?
Well, we've seen that stubbornness for a couple years.
For a couple of years. And so that's the thing that makes me worried is if Ryan Day gets back to that old attitude of letting his pride get in the way of his actual coaching ability, there could be some problems. I originally wrote this down, and I'm going to tweak it slightly. My original prediction was 24-10. I felt like this would be an uncomfortable watch. Both teams are going to go out there and give it their all because they're going to prove to each other, that they're the better team and the coaching staff's going to be prideful. And I feel like that's all going to be true. But I do think that Ohio State's just got way more talent right now. I'm going to move it slightly. I think this game ends up being 31-10. I think Ohio State puts another on the board. I think it starts off a little slow. Maybe like what Michigan was this past week. You might have a 17-10, 17-7 game, 14-7.
You check in and you go, what's going on in this game?
You're interested, and then I think mid-third quarter, Ohio State starts to kind of wear them down and pull away. 31-10, Ohio State wins.
Here's one question that I have about Ohio State, and then we'll move into college football pick'em because there are some great games this weekend. And I'll ask the question by kind of giving my thought on it. Yeah. I am trying to both objectively and as a rival, I'm trying to evaluate where Ohio State's at this point in the year. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like for me, I'm holding, and I'd just be curious your perspective on this. I feel like as a Michigan guy, I'm holding separate things in separate hands. On the one hand, I'm looking at Ohio State and I'm obviously going, this is a really impressive team. We've talked before about Ohio State being unbeatable death machine and how they weren't there this year, but how it sure seems like they are moving that direction and they're as close as anybody in the country to being that right now. There's the other part of me though, that kind of looks at resume and goes, is this as impressive as I'm being led to believe? And here's why I'm thinking that. Right now, I would argue that Ohio State's best win is the same best win Michigan has, and that would be Washington. Mm-hmm. Because I'm looking at Illinois going, yikes. For what? Washington just smoked Illinois. I'm looking at Texas going, yikes. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know what's going on at Texas, but it's not good. We've gone from Arch Manning like flexing on Sam Houston State.
He had a good game last week.
They were down by 17 to Mississippi State.
But he was good.
It took overtime, back-to-back weeks to beat some of the worst teams in the SEC.
Look.
And so you get my question where in the one hand, I don't doubt how good this team is. On the other hand, I'm questioning how good is this team because some of these marquee wins don't look super marquee.
But see, I think I said the same thing about Indiana and I caught crap for it because I'm looking at this and everybody was hyping up their Illinois win. And now everybody's going, yeah, well, Illinois sucks and they're terrible.
But they still have the win over Oregon, though.
But Oregon struggled to beat a very bad Wisconsin team this past week. It was 7-0 at half.
So this is where it gets confusing to me because I think both things can probably be true. It's kind of where I'm landing, where Ohio State is the best team in the country right now.
I think, yeah.
and yet I'm putting a lot less stock in. Well, they beat Texas. Okay,
well, here's my thing. I think both can be true, but I think you can doubt Indiana and you can doubt Ohio State. I think what puts Ohio State a little bit ahead is that they did it last year. And I think you can look at this defense and go, well, this was an elite group last year and this is an elite group this year. They don't know what the teams are going to look like going into the schedule. So you looked at this game going into the season and you go, man, Texas at number 1,
absolutely.
Penn State at number 2. You've got Washington, who's going to be good. Illinois, who's a top 10 team. Like they can't control that. They can only control who they play.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that they should have done scheduling different.
No, but I'm just saying that, like you have all these people that for Indiana are going, they should be the number 1 team in the nation. And I said last week, maybe it was even the week before, that I was hesitant because they haven't gone over the mountaintop yet. All last season, all I heard was Indiana is back. They were undefeated. Then they played Ohio State and they got curb stomped. Then they went into the playoffs and they lost to Notre Dame the very first game. Now this season, they go and they beat an Oregon team who on the podcast, on record, I said that would convince me that this is a good team. And I would say that the Indiana is a good team. But I also said in that same episode, well, but Illinois isn't. And that was their biggest win up till then. And I'm curious how good Oregon is because their biggest win was Penn State, who now we just got done talking about as being a bad team and is 20.5-point underdogs to Ohio State.
And this is probably where the transitive win property is just,
I think you can do that all day. To me, I don't think it's unfair to get back to your original question. I don't think it's unfair to question parts of this Ohio State team. I think as good as Julian Sayin has been, I would say the same thing with him that I've said about Bryce Underwood, and I think it's fair. I don't think Julian Sayin has had a game this year where we won because of him. And that sounds crazy because he's had a handful of games that have been phenomenal performances, but those were against lesser teams. I'm talking about in big games. Like I'm not looking at
I thought he was good again. He's been doing a couple different games.
He was good. I'm not saying he was bad, but
I thought he won the game against Illinois for you. Like I thought Bryce won the game against Washington.
I don't know if I would.
Again,
they didn't play bad. They didn't play bad. I just don't think. I think the defense helped him out with a lot. Like he did exactly what you wanted against Washington to win. He did exactly what you needed against Texas to win. He did exactly what you needed against Illinois. Like he's not played bad. I don't want it to be misinterpreted as that. He has just never been. I've never walked away from a bigger game, and gone, Julian Sayin was the difference maker. I've said, look at the phenomenal play from Carnell Tate, and I know part of that is the person that gets him the ball, but I'm looking at a Carnell Tate performance, or I'm looking at a defensive performance. Those things have had more of an impact so far. So I think it's fair to still have small question marks for Julian Sayin. Not a is he a good quarterback? I think we've answered that. But I think when you get to the playoffs, when you get to the game, when you get to, if you're lucky enough to get to the Big Ten championship, you're going to have to rely on him to help be the difference maker in those.
And that's really the reason for asking is, again, everything is through the filter of the game. And so and again, if you're a college football fan looking in and you're not part of this rivalry, and like it won't make sense, but every single game, when I watch Michigan play Purdue this weekend, I'm thinking, how does this help us beat Ohio State? When Ohio State plays Grambling, you're looking at going, oh, that receiver was open. We could beat Michigan secondary like that. It makes no sense, but it does. Hot take, Texas A&M should be the number 1 team in the country over both of them. Let's go to Pick'em and Stupid Genius upset picks of the week. As a reminder, just before we go into the Pick'em, Stupid Genius is, I believe, 23.5 to 6.5.
6.5, yep.
Works pretty simple. It must be a 5.5 point underdog at time of recording. If you get your upset pick correct, you get whatever the spread was at time of recording. So you are up 23.5 to 6.5.
I got the very first one.
Neither of our teams hit this weekend. You picked Minnesota to beat Iowa. That was
surely
terrible.
Did not happen.
And I had App State over Old Dominion, and no. Did not. I'm sure this will be better.
We're pretty great at it.
All right, let's start. Let's do some pick'em, knowing that Stupid Genius could come up at any point. Number 9, Vanderbilt. At number 20, Texas. Speaking of Texas and their struggles to beat literally anyone that's not Sam Houston State.
I'm going to go Vanderbilt. I know it obviously looks better if Texas wins. I would love for Texas to win so that it helps Ohio State's case. But Diego Pavia is just too hard to not root for, man. The guy is so fun. I loved every bit of his press conference where he got up there and confidently said that he should be in the Heisman. He shouldn't, but I love that he thinks he should.
I want to live in a world where Vanderbilt is in the SEC championship.
Could you? Oh man.
I want to live in a world where Vanderbilt's in the SEC championship. Give me Vanderbilt in this one as well. I think Texas is a mess. How they're ranked 20th is beyond me. How you can have back-to-back overtime games against Mississippi State and Kentucky and be ranked in the top 20. If anyone says, well, there's no SEC bias in the AP poll. Yes, there is.
Did you see, this is a very small tangent, but I forget what the ESPN reporter's name where they ranked their playoffs and they didn't even include Ohio State in it. How at this point in the season are you a
no notes
national media member and you're excluding Ohio State from the playoffs?
We could do this. Listen, we're not national media, but like we could do this. By the way, so that I don't forget, as an aside, as media members, we have to apply for different credentials with different schools. So we're credentialed with Ohio State, we're credentialed with Michigan, but when you go to an away game, you have to apply for that particular game with that institution. Yeah. We applied for Michigan at Michigan State in 2023. Michigan State said no. Michigan State has been outscored something like 104 to 30 since that denial. That's it. Number 18, Oklahoma at number 14, Tennessee. This is a de facto playoff elimination game.
For sure.
Oklahoma at Tennessee. Who you got?
I was 50-50 on this. But
this should be a tight game.
Yeah, I don't expect this to be lopsided at all. I think I'm going to lean more Oklahoma than Tennessee. And I don't really know why, if I'm being honest, because I've flip-flopped so much. But I think that I still really believe, I know they just lost to Ole Miss. It was a relatively tight game, but I still like Mateer. I still really like this defense, despite them giving up 400 plus to Ole Miss. I still think they have what it takes. I'm going to go with my gut and just say Oklahoma gets it.
I flip-flopped on this as well. I've landed on Tennessee for this one. I've landed on Joey Aguilar in Tennessee. I think that offense is really good. I know the Oklahoma defense is good. John Mateer just does not, he doesn't look like the John Mateer that I saw when Michigan went down to Norman. Now, some of that was the Michigan defensive game plan, right? We talked about that with USC and Oklahoma, how the defensive game plan was just abysmal. But we also have watched John Mateer leading up to the surgery and leading after the surgery. Mm-hmm. And he does not look like and I'm sure he's not, but he just does not look like the same guy when he was at full health. So I'll take Tennessee at home in this one. Elimination game. It should be a fantastic football game. I'll take the Vols. This one will have my attention. USC at Nebraska. USC, now ranked 23rd in the country, going to Nebraska. And obviously, interest from the Big Ten standpoint, interest from a playoff standpoint. This is a playoff elimination game as well, right? Like Nebraska, I guess maybe
could
still in it.
Maybe.
I don't know. Probably not, but I mean, certainly for USC, USC cannot lose this football game. An interest because Michigan has played both these teams, obviously, struggled significantly at USC, played pretty well at Nebraska, and has implications for Big Ten championship game type stuff, right? When we talk about tiebreakers, if Michigan beats Ohio State and has one loss, then you do head to head, then you do, you've got all Nebraska winning this game would be helpful for Michigan. I'll put it that way. I am taking USC because I just think that offense is so it's the best offense in the country. And I think Nebraska's going to struggle to stop it because I watched them struggle to stop Michigan's offense, who is decent, but it's not USC.
Yeah, I think I'm going USC for the exact same reason. I've seen that offense. It's too explosive. I don't see Nebraska being able to hang tight with them. I think Raiola will have a great game. They don't have enough firepower.
But if they could, that would really help out.
I actually low-key kind of like a world where Nebraska is kind of up there, I don't know why. I don't dislike USC, but also when they're not great, I kind of still like it.
It's fun to hate Lincoln Riley, though.
Yeah, it really kind of just is. It just is.
And then the last game we're going to pick here, and then we'll hit Stupid Genius. Number 17, Cincinnati. Speaking of teams that have lost to Nebraska and then come out of nowhere. Number 17, Cincinnati at number 24, Utah. And again, another de facto playoff elimination game for both these schools. Who you like in this one? This one at Rice-Eccles Stadium, tough place to play.
Typically, it goes against my religion to root for anything from Cincinnati as a Browns fan. But because they have two former Buckeyes that are playing super well for them, you've got Evan Pryor, the running back, who's been really good for the Bearcats. Then you have tight end Joe Royer that has been good. He was buried on the depth chart at Ohio State. I'm going to go with the Bearcats on this one.
I am also going to take Cincinnati in
Let's
this
go.
one. And I think Utah is a good team, but I've also watched Utah get hammered by Texas Tech. I watched them get beat by BYU. And again, Texas Tech's a good team. BYU's a good team. I just don't know that Utah's got enough. And for whatever reason, Cincinnati has suddenly been on a tear.
Well, they only lost to Nebraska by 3, and it was week 1.
Yeah, and that is what it is. And it was an away game. That was a home game. That was an away game.
Well, they played it at the Chiefs Stadium, so the refs obviously helped Raiola because he looks like Mahomes. There's a whole theory.
That hurts me as a Lions fan. Cincinnati is also, by the way, my Stupid Genius upset pick of the week. Okay. They are plus 9.5 in this game. And that feels like a point spread that I need. I need that to hit. And it doesn't feel like a crazy pick. I'll take the Bearcats.
That makes one of us.
Okay.
That was one of my 3 options because you know how I am. I got to write all my stuff out and then I got to just go with my heart. And this won't surprise you at all. It's not going to hit, but boy, would I love it if it would. Rutgers.
Stop picking
on the road.
I am not going to let you pick Rutgers.
Rutgers on the road at Illinois. I'm going to say a little hot take here.
You just did, my guy.
Rutgers has the best wide receiver room in the Big Ten right now. Statistically.
That's just not
statistically.
a thing.
Statistically, they do. Now, obviously, anybody with a brain cell is going to take Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith, but they've got some dudes over there. DT Sheffield, he was a transfer that came in. He's got, I think, 400 plus yards. Then you have KJ Duff, who has 760 something yards. And then you have Ian Strong, who has another like 600 something. They have got really good receivers. Ethan Kaliak-Manis has been one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten this season. Antoine Raymond, a really good running back for the Scarlet Knights. The problem with the Scarlet Knights this year has not been on the offensive side of the ball, which may surprise anybody who has ever watched a Rutgers football game in previous years.
Nobody has.
It has been the opposite problem where the defensive side has been stout and the offense just couldn't move the ball 10 yards if they really tried and nobody was on the field. That is not this team. And we talked about it when Ohio State played Illinois, that Illinois' weak spot was their secondary. And it feels like if there was ever a game for a giant letdown from an Illinois team, it would be against a Scarlet Knight team that's got a really, really strong group of wide receivers. They are currently 12.5-point underdogs on the road.
Okay, that's not going to hit.
Probably not, but wouldn't it be awesome?
Also, in no world does Rutgers have the best wide receiver room in the Big Ten.
Statistically, it's factual.
I will even give Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate that honor. E.J. Williams and Elijah Surratt in Indiana.
I'm saying statistically, they have more yardage than any of those other duos.
Statistically, you're a fool.
Stats are stats.
Anyway, please follow this podcast. Despite all that, please ignore that last 3 minutes.
Stats are stats.
We need a
Google
shirt.
me. I win.
We need a shirt that just says stats are stats.
Stats are stats. Can that be a new slogan?
I feel like it might be.
Yes.
Please follow us on social media despite whatever that was about Rutgers at RivalPod. Support the podcast, rivalpod.com. Get yourself some RivalPod merch and be sure to listen, share, subscribe, rate, review. I don't know. Are there any other things people should do? Stats or stats? The Rivalry Podcast is part of the Varsity Network from Learfield and the River Podcast Network from River Radio Ministries.
New episodes out every Monday.
Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening right now, and follow on social media at RivalPod and rivalpod.com.
And if you like what you hear, share with a friend so they can listen too.